Blitz is defined as a sudden, savage attack. It is indeed all this. The effect is sure. The premise is simple. It's a basic, primal confrontation, man to man. No excuses are offered, none accepted.
Welcome to the latest edition of Longhorn Blitz with horns247.com.
It's like a radio station.
Now, here are your hosts, lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers,
Pure athlete, yeah.
I transcend race, hombre.
Matt Butler,
I don't talk, man. I back it up.
And we are chock full of that, man.
Damn right.
and Jeff Howe.
It's still real to me, damn it.
And that's the bottom line, because Stone Cold said so.
If you're gonna blitz, come strong, but don't come at all.
Coming strong with another off-season edition of Longhorn Blitz with horns247.com. I am Jeff Howe, going to bring you the latest and greatest on the 40 acres. Talking a lot of Longhorn football. Veterans are due back on campus next week. Summer workout's going to start after that once the newcomers get rolling in. I believe June 2nd, I think, is when residence halls open, and then summer school starts right after that. Rod B., you know about all that.
Hey, man, I used to love that time.
You got to clear out the dorm, then you got to come back.
You got to clear out the dorm because I always stayed for summer, so I would live in the dorms during the summer. Ken Solving, I think we would live in, which was good because it was cold.
That's a building name?
Yeah, Ken Solving is over there. Damn it, where is it? Is it? Oh, man. Is it Dean Keaton? Is over there by Dean Keaton? Ken Solving? Yeah. That communications. There you go. So it was great because we were never that close to the co-ed part of the dorms because they would have us like situated on floors 3, 4, and 5 in Jester. And Jester, by the way, I think when I was living there, it was like the biggest dorm in the southwestern United States. You know what I mean? Like it was huge. But we were only on 3, 4, and 5. All the football players, so you could they had regular RAs. They were supposed to police
Casey Hampton.
Football players, yes. And Leonard Davis and Sean Rogers. You know what I mean? On floors 3, 4, and 5. I feel so bad for those damn RAs, man. I always used to give them love and, like, listen to them and, like, all right, man, I'll do it. Because they would have to knock on doors and, like.
You're a mediator.
Give notices to, like Casey Hampton.
Eviction.
You know what I mean? Like, well, just like, hey, man, I saw some trash outside here. Dumb, I need you to pick up that trash. You know what I mean? Like
you give them Debo eyes.
They would just get straight up. They would straight up punk these dudes, man.
Oh, yeah.
And I feel so bad for them all the time. Anyway, I digress. My point being, we were not close to the co-ed part of Jester. So and then our dining hall was separate. So we were always like separate but equal. Like, you know what I mean? Like we were literally segregated from the rest of the actual student population. But in Ken Solving during the summer, we weren't. Like I was right next door to like across the way from like ladies who were they were like roommates.
It was a new world.
And then I was roommates with some. I think me and Dakari Pearson were living together back then, like in the Consolving dorms. And I didn't spend a lot of time there because I was always off campus hanging out with the cool kids, if you say. You know what I mean? Shanahan and Sims.
Because you lived with them.
Never lived the dorms like they always. Even though you were supposed to live in freshman, Sims had a dorm room. But I think he also had an apartment too.
Yeah.
I think he had both. You know what I mean? Like,
Only
hey, why
smart.
not? So we were always hanging out off campus, but Ken Solving, that's why it was great during the summer because I had access to the ladies, man. That's where I hooked up Stevie Lee with Summer, who he is still married to this day. They got beautiful kids together, and I hooked that up because I was trying to hook up with her, and she was like, I want to meet a nice guy. And I was like, oh, but that ain't me. I got somebody you can meet, though. You know what I mean? I got somebody I hook
There's
up
85
with.
of us.
Boom.
There's one I know that you should.
It's a perfect marriage. So he's a football player. She's a cheerleader for Texas. I want to say they're like the Cosby Show. Well, not
That's
now.
what he said when he
Not
came
Bill
on
Cosby
with us.
now,
He thanked you. He totally vouched.
He owes me, dude. Like if I ever have to like kill somebody and I need somewhere to hide the body, I need somebody to help me chop it up and all that kind of stuff, I'm calling Stevie Lee because you owe me, bro. All right, I hooked you up with your woman, married with kids, you're happy. You owe that to Rod B.
This podcast just got dark real quick, Rod. Thanks.
I will never need to do that. But I'm just saying, you got to have somebody that owes you that kind of
stuff.
stuff.
When a man wants to tell how much trust he has in another, that's about as high accolades.
If you're going to be AC to OJ's AC, that's what everybody
so Stevie
should have.
Lee's your Al
somebody.
Cowlings.
Yes, everybody should have somebody in their life where they would drive the white Bronco, no questions asked. I got you, bro. If you ain't got that person in your life, you're doing it wrong. Maybe it's your wife, maybe it's your boy. I don't know who it is, but I'm just saying, Casey Horney is that for Tom Herman. I guarantee you.
And I can see.
Think about, because I've seen Casey Horney at that background thing too. I talked to Casey. I was like, "What's up, man? Good to see you." Everything. And then he's like, "Yeah, man." Because I actually was texting to him back when him coming onto the staff was a big deal. And I was upset about it.
By the way, for the record, Casey Horney was the DBGA when Rod was on the 40.
So I know Casey really well. And I said, "Hey, man, Casey probably tweeted something stupid, didn't make him a bad guy. I know he's a good dude." But I was talking to him, and I was like, "Man," I was like, "How much love you got for Tom Herman?" He was like, "Man, that guy." It's AC. Like, he would drive the white Bronco for Tom Herman.
Kindred spirits.
Like, boom, no question.
And the one difference though between,
but he also say, like, when you do a favor like that for somebody, it's that's you're in deep.
It wasn't until the 30 for 30 on OJ that I found out, though, because your Al Cowling's metaphor is exactly a good comparison, except for the one fact that in high school, he actually had OJ steal his girlfriend in front of his face and never reacted. And then that's where the subservient level came after that.
OJ did take his woman.
Yes, OJ did not treat Al very well. True. And Al actually jumped in front of OJ when somebody tried to shoot him, and they were mocking they would shoot him, and Al jumped in front of him.
Since we're talking OJ, my theory about the OJ, all this kind of stuff is with the, Kris Jenner now, but she was Kris Kardashian back then, and Marcus Allen is involved in all this too, and AC.
This is the kind of good stuff you get on Longhorn Blitz.
They were all it was like the 70s, it was like 70s and 80s. They were all swingers.
Oh yeah,
that's why, and it got out of control. Like they were all just swingers.
Partying.
The Kardashians, Marcus Allen and his woman, who's on the Housewives at one point. AC,
L.A.
That's
cocaine
why they were all
and money.
So close and weird. Boom, it was cocaine and swinging, and that's just my theory. And then it got out of control when OJ started hearing that Marcus Allen was banging his woman. And AC may have been banging her, and other, and that Kris. That's why Kris Jenner may actually have had Khloe Kardashian.
There's some DNA.
Yeah, I got all that kind of stuff. That's why it's all like interwoven. It's because they were just swinging out, they were having a good time, and OJ got a little jealous, man. OJ got jealous, and that's what OJ's shady.
The bigger, younger version of him.
There you go.
Well, we're going to talk about Sam Ehlinger and some other stuff on the show this week.
From OJ to Sam Ehlinger.
Yeah, we're going to try to make that segue. Let me bring in the rest of the team. He is the master of the soundboard, the drop machine extraordinaire. No longer the man behind the glass, but the man that sits to my right. He is at the controls. If it were not for him, this podcast would be awful. He is Matt Butler. Matt, how are things, man?
Doing well.
I thought we were supposed to be in severe weather time right now.
I wish we were. These my dad's called the things behind us thunder poppers because you have a big amount of humidity, so a chance of rain. But pretty dry right now. Now, you said drop machine extraordinaire, and I don't have my old drop machine. But I did transport a lot of them, and as I was walking in today, and I was thinking a Big 12 tournament, and I just started laughing out loud.
I know exactly where you're going with
because
this.
I immediately started to think. The first thing I think of when I think of Big 12 tournament is a game against Missouri, and it was Mr. Bill Little, and I played that sound for you the other day. So there's an inside joke among Longhorn fans that we don't make fun of dying or make fun of cancer, but when we laugh when those are involved, it's a Bill Little reference.
And
so
we
it's
don't
sort of
mean
an
to
inside joke.
We don't mean to demean Paul Splittorff either.
Oh no,
Oh,
the
man.
Kansas Cityan
It happens.
God, that's such a
is
great
dead.
moment in radio.
A man who loves a good
1-2
soundbite. He loves a good drop. He can talk about his OJ theories and all kinds of stuff on this show and on the broadcast each and every day on 104.9 The Horn from 1 to 3 because he is our Renaissance man and he is our lockdown corner here on the show. Lifetime Longhorn, 2002 UT All-American, 2002 semifinalist for the Jim Thorpe Award, 4th round draft choice of the New York Giants in 2003. Spent his NFL career with the Giants, Lions, Bears, Bucks, Broncos, and a year with the Hamilton Tiger Cats of the CFL, who now
That's right, baby.
have
right.
Johnny Manziel under contract.
Give it up, baby.
So the degrees between
know if
Rod
that's how
B
they
and
do it.
Art Browse and Johnny Manziel, it just that weave gets woven even tighter. But when he was done in Canada, got himself back to Austin, Texas, under 40 acres, where he earned his degree. If he knew where his T ring was or was in possession of one, he would wear it proudly. Nevertheless, he is a card-carrying member of DBU, number 21 in your program, number 1 in your hearts, Mr. Rod Babers.
Thanks for the intro, brother. Always make me feel good.
Rod, it's interesting, man. I filled in on the afternoon show. Kevin Dunn was on vacation last week, so I sat in with Chad last Thursday. Went to the Houston Touchdown Club. You remember that trip I was telling you last week? I was like, should I go or not? I ended up going.
I'm
I went
glad
to Houston.
you went. I was like, you got to go check that out, man.
Craig Way was down there?
Craig Way was emceeing the banquet.
Everybody
and
was there.
big time.
CDC was there.
Yeah, got a little time with Tom Herman.
Yeah.
And then drove back into the afternoon show. And I don't remember if it was the afternoon blitz or voicemails, But somebody requested that I do the Rod Babers intro from this podcast on the afternoon show.
No.
That's awesome.
So
that's
the
really
best
cool.
intro I've ever gotten.
I didn't know the intro was that popular, but I'm glad people like it.
No,
so.
it's almost like a wrestling intro.
No,
like
yeah,
it's
I was
just-
about to say the same thing. You
it's
have the
like-
roots,
it's like a-
and
yeah.
like it's a subliminal thing
really
that there
is.
is a build-up that you come with.
I know.
That if you are just from that 80s, 90s kid era, you're used to almost everything being presented that way.
I'm gonna have you like record it for the Rodcast one time.
So I guess
Like,
what Paul Heyman is to Brock Lesnar, I am to Rod Babers.
There you go.
I'll take it every damn time, brother. No,
Rod-
it does make me feel good though. I love the intro.
Rod is a much better mouthpiece than Brock Lesnar, though. I'll tell you
I
that much.
appreciate that. See, there you go. That means a lot.
I don't
to
think
me.
you're as much of a badass as Brock Lesnar.
No,
but
I would say in mouthpiece ranking of DBU, Quandre is probably at the top. But I would say your boy, I might be
You're
in the
up
top
there,
10.
Rod.
I
Right
might
there
be in the top
was. I
10,
assume Vasher was
top
up
five.
there.
Vasher could talk some trash, yeah. But there's some guy. Brian Westbrook apparently was a notorious trash talker.
when you can provoke Roy Williams into throwing hands on the practice field,
Yeah.
I'd say your
Boom.
game is up
I've
there.
never seen
And I was a
Roy
wrestling
Williams
fan
angry.
anyway, so I knew how to just get ridiculous with it.
Rod
Yeah.
B studied the Macho Man Randy Savage and Ric
Ric
Flair.
Flair, boom, yeah, Macho Man. Macho Man's mouthpiece underrated.
Yes,
Very underrated. Yeah.
Sometimes you didn't know what the hell he was talking about, but it sounded cool.
That was something I learned
Which is
also.
like all of rap now. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
there you
I don't know
go.
what the hell he's talking about, but that sounds really cool.
And I also learned in that Andre the Giant 30 for 30, the one person Andre the Giant didn't like that Macho Man.
Yeah, that was random,
He was
too.
too fake for him. He didn't like the flashiness of this up and coming youngster.
Really?
So
Yes.
am I to believe that this generation of hip hop artists were influenced by the Ultimate Warrior? Because he was another guy that had promos that he's like just ranting and raving. I'm like, I don't know what the hell he's
Well,
talking
now
about.
we
Like
know,
now when you
yeah.
like kids now, like if you're like in that 19 to 21, 22 range listening to hip hop now, are you gonna look back 20 years and be like, I don't know what the hell that guy was talking about?
No. I said I always can't wait. I can't wait till I get old, and hopefully I make it. You know what I mean, to the point where I'm old. But when old people, 70-year-old people, 80-year-old people, when the music they grew up with is actually hip hop, because hip hop is so young,
Yeah.
but still probably
Yeah.
the most impactful musical
In
genre
nursing homes
in the
or
history of the world. Like they've actually
banging
done studies.
screw.
Right.
No musical genre has been this impactful this quickly in the history of the world. All right, not rock and roll or anything. And when people are like 80, like now my mom listens to Motown and all this kind of stuff. So and then and people listen to Elvis and the Beatles and everything because they're old now. What happens? You know what I mean? In 20, 30, 40 years, when the 70, 80-year-old people, when you go to the nursing home.
In H-Town and they're banging Screw.
They're jamming Screw. They're jamming Jeezy. They're jamming Lil Wayne. You know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
how weird is that going to be? That's going to be like that's going to happen, though.
Yeah.
Like, old people are going to be jamming
I'm starting
hip-hop.
to see
Like,
with my parents.
Yeah.
Because my parents are hitting 60, which isn't real old, but to me as a little kid, 60 was real old.
Yeah.
But my dad will roll up with the windows down smoking a cigarette, jamming some like heavy 80s hairband rock. And I'm like, yes, there you go. Yeah, give me AC/DC. I was going to a
There you
family
go.
thing, and he wanted
There you
to
go.
drive around so we could hear the end of the AC/DC song. And
Yeah.
it's like evolving towards that. One more decade, and you get 90s, and then that's where you're
That's
at
where
whenever
you-
they're
yeah.
bringing Nirvana is the classic.
I just think rock and roll is not weird because you get old people that are playing concerts. Old rappers don't exist.
Yeah.
The old rock and roll
Run
guys,
DMC.
they tour forever.
Mm-hmm.
They tour forever. In their 60s and 70s, like, yeah, we're getting the Eagles back together. It's like, damn, how old y'all has got to be when y'all perform. Hip-hop artists, after 40 years old as a hip-hop artist, it's not cool to
Run
see you up there
DMC's it.
rapping about pimping and rapping about drugs and going to the club. It ain't cool. That's why now Snoop Dogg is working with Martha Stewart. That's why Ice Cube now is doing family-friendly movies. That's why Ice-T is now going from cop killers to playing a cop
Yep.
on TV to
Ice
Tuola.
Cube.
You know what I mean? Like, you have to transition as a rapper. That's why it's going to be even more ironically profound and weird to see old people, like great old people, jamming like NWA.
Yeah.
And jamming like, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
straight. That's what they're going to be jamming when they get old because that's all we know. When I get old, I'm jamming Tupac.
Yeah.
I'm going to be jamming Hail Mary at 70. If I'm
That's
at 70,
awesome.
and my kid's going to be like, that music's stupid. And I'm like, well, hey. Cool to me, man.
Yeah.
Tupac. That's what's going to
See,
be weird
rap
about it.
may be
Sorry
that
for a
first
random rant
one,
about
though.
Hip hop and old people.
I think rap will be that first one, though, that will follow that 70s rock movement where you didn't have what you were saying until the Stones and Zeppelin and those happened. And then we've got to see that first generation of true old rock stars because before was Elvis or whoever. So
true.
now that's only 20 years removed from that Tupac crew and the Snoop crew. So, yeah, it's going to be very fun to watch.
Snoop too.
People watching.
Random. All right, random conversation.
Again.
Sorry.
No, it's random. We go different places. So while y'all were doing that, I was getting some work done. So I just let the hip hop conversation cycle through.
If we were talking wrestling, though, he'd be all deep.
I would.
I'd be.
That's
I'd
how
be
this
deep into
started,
it.
by the way.
I love hip hop, but I had something to do, so I was like, I'll just let Matt Rod riff for a little bit. I'll get this little thing done I need to get done, and then we'll move on.
My bad.
But no, I want to pick this up, Rob. We were talking last week. We ended the show talking about what, and you and I have done this probably since we started doing the show. Like what offense or defense that Texas has in the coming year? What will it have to resemble to make it the most successful? Like what model should they follow based on personnel? And we've had to talk about scheme too, because we've had this deal every spring for the last decade. It seems like where you're changing schemes. Oh, we're gonna be a downhill running team. No, we want to be Oklahoma State and Oregon. No, we want to be Seinfeld, be an offense about nothing. We want to be tempo. We want to be pro style. We want to be spread and not spread. And we want to be Baylor and whatever, Tom Herman's deal. So it's been confusing times on the 40.
We're a master of nothing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we ended talking about how this Texas offense needs to resemble the 2008 offense. Like that should be kind of their blueprint, so to say, within the confines of the Tom Herman's offense. And it's going to be a little bit different because this offense, I think, has better personnel at tight end. You don't have Quan Cosby and Jordan Shipley at wide receiver, but you still got pretty good receivers.
And you don't have Como.
You don't have 12 pulling the trigger. Exactly.
That's the big
Pistolas
difference.
McCoy.
Right. But we got onto it because, the addition of Trey Watson and what type of expectations should you have for Trey Watson? Not Randy Watson, but Trey Watson.
Randy Watson, yes.
Thank you, Rod. I appreciate that. I was waiting on one of you two to drop in with that. But anyway, so the expectations for Trey Watson, we kind of looked at Duke Catalon's numbers, Tom Herman's last year at Houston. We went back to 2008 and looked at Chris Obaniah's numbers. And if you can get somewhere around there, around 500 yards, maybe around 5 yards a carry, in the ballpark of 40 catches, that's not outrageous for Trey Watson to have that kind of production.
Yeah.
So, and if you get that, then you're at the 2008 model. And this is an offense, Rob. We didn't get into this. We got into it a little bit, but Herb Hand, I think, has brought some things to the table that are going to make this team more efficient running the football. But this is an offense where your best plan of attack is probably going to be you're going to have to throw it to open up the run.
Yeah, I've talked about that too on my show, actually. I brought up I'll make sure I get the stat right. There's one game this year where the Texas offense, or last year I should say, where the Texas offense scored more than at least 30 points or more and didn't have a non-offensive touchdown. It's only one of those games.
That's not good.
K-State, I believe, is the only game.
And then you were losing even games with non-offensive touchdowns like Maryland.
Yeah, which is actually which goes against almost every football statistic.
Just shows how bad
statistical
other things
trend
were.
you've ever seen. Yeah, but I did that math. I was trying to look at the offense and kind of look at what worked for them last year, and I started breaking down the games individually. And like Matt said, most of the games they had non-offensive touchdowns where they had an offensive outburst. And I believe the only game where they scored 30 or more points without a non-offensive touchdown was K-State. And if you remember that game, I remember us talking about it on this podcast. They threw the ball to open up the offense for the run game. Remember how many yards after catch? I believe in that game, Texas had more yards after catch in that K-State game than any other game this year in terms of their wide receiving core, because they were throwing short, high percentage passes, which allowed Texas to get these wide receivers out in space, and then they were able to do what they do, get the yards after the catch, make moves. Lil Jordan Humphrey, I think, had a really good game. Oh, who's the other receiver? Was it Hemp Maps?
I'm going to it right now, but you're right. It was the Kansas State game. No non-offensive scores right there.
I think it was Hemp.
Hemphill had double-digit catches. Colin
12
Johnson.
for 121, Hemphill.
Colin Johnson was 7 for 92 in that game. Yeah.
Okay. And I think Lil Jordan Humphrey made some plays too.
4 for 60.
Yeah, so what I noticed is most of that, go look at it, I want to say more than half those yards that Sam Ellinger threw in that game were yards after the catch.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because
they were a 33-yard off the wheel route.
Yeah, they were just throwing like quick, high percentage passes, and then they would supplement the offense with the running game. and they would allow the passing game to be an extension of the running game at times, and just allow him to, do quick hitters to wide receivers out in the flats, just get it to guys really quickly so they can make some moves and beat guys one-on-one in space. I think that's going to be the offense this year, because now you got guys like Trey Watson, who also can take advantage of a mismatch and be a quick flare route or a screen route. Those are high percentage passes, but they'll get you the yak yards and the rack yards, and you'll have the tight end position that will be a quick hitter. You know what I mean? That can give you. And we said now the tight end position is plentiful. You got a lot of skill there. Now you have depth there. Lil Jordan Humphrey, what did he do really well? Well, when he had the ball in his hands, whether as a runner, all right, as a running back, or as a guy that was catching the pass, he actually was able to make plays after he got the ball in his hands. Right. So you've got a lot of guys like that I think, you can kind of build the offensive game plan around. So I agree with you 100%. You throw to open the door. That K-State game is kind of the blueprint for Texas going forward offensively, in my opinion.
Exactly. So when we look at Texas being able to – and by the way, Rod, one thing I wanted to mention, I talked about this last year, and I went and kind of from when I watched U of H and I watched Tom Herman was at coaching school last year at the Texas High School Coach Association Convention and coaching school, and he was one of the featured speakers. And, it was basically split into 2 hours. 1 hour was on culture and, establishing culture and kind of the things they do in the program. And the other was kind of because you go to those clinics, you got to give an X's and O's talk, and it was basically on their play action passing series. And I noticed a lot of their checks, and we saw this more so with Shane Buechele than with Sam Ehlinger. A lot of their checks were a quick throw to the X receiver end of the boundary. Mm-hmm. And that to me is perfect for Sam Ehlinger, because if you're just looking for a high percentage throw to get your quarterback started off on the right foot, just check, boom, a little hitch to Colin Johnson. Oh. And then look, that's where Colin Johnson though needs to develop, because look, at 6'6", 215 or 220, whatever you are, you got to be able to get some yards after catch. You got to be able to either get by that cornerback, run through him, beat the first defender, account for that first defender by yourself. And that throw can be very effective for Texas based on what you're talking about. But I want to look at Sam Ehlinger for a second.
Can you use that throw? Sorry to interrupt you. I just want to ask you this before you continue. Can you use that throw in like RPO form too? That throw right there,
idea,
to the boundary?
Yeah, actually.
Ideally, but I'm just
that concept-wise, it works with the running play off the backside.
Yeah, exactly.
But what's interesting, though, you bring up the tight ends, a lot of their RPO stuff, one of the primary reads in that is going to be the little flare to the tight end.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which we saw that in the spring game.
And we saw the back out of the backfield last year with the
delayed
RPO.
Release,
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's going to be one of their primary reads in our RPO stuff, is that little kind of flare or swing to the tight end in the flat.
And you were going to Ehlinger, and while you said it was the K-State game, I pulled up the box score, and just like a great example of how different the game is now to the game that we even watched a decade ago. Like, until Colt McCoy, there had never been a 300-100 game in Texas football history. Vince Young never did it. Colt McCoy was the first quarterback to have a 300-100. He had one of them ever. And then Ehlinger in that game had 300-100. He had 380 in 100. And Hurd had one game against Cal because he was running all over.
Swoops have a 300-100 game?
Not a 300. Not unless, I am citing Texas's record book, which could be been wrong. Nathan Basher has yelled at us. But
I've been burned by
that's
that
why you
record
cite
book
your
too.
sources. Thank you, journalism school. According to TexasSports.com, there's only been 3 of those games in school history, all of which in the past since Colt McCoy. But that's just perfect context to the modern game.
Oh, Swoops had a game against I'm looking back at Tyrone Swoops 2014. He had a game against Iowa State, 321-95.
So he could have been in folklore. He could have joined this group that Vince Young had never achieved.
Colt McCoy, Sam Ehlinger, Gerard Hurd. Yeah. I think you said it's more of
just the modern game.
I think it's more insight on the modern game.
Man, you look at Tyrone Swoops though in 2014. Just looking at his game logs, you forget that in that Oklahoma game, he threw for 334.
Yeah,
but see, and that's why game script's so great, because I notice it's so much more in daily fantasy, but if you fall behind early by throwing a few interceptions and spot them a 17-3 lead, it's a lot easier to throw for 300 yards when you're trying to come from behind and the defense is
they're giving you certain things.
Exactly.
So you have certain
it's
things,
funny when you see quarterbacks' production actually be most caused by their own mistakes.
Yeah.
If they dig a hole like in
Matt Stafford's like that, and Romo was like that to a certain extent at times. Romo was his
certain
own
teams.
Yeah.
You're like so good that you can get them back above average when you should just be getting beat down.
So here's my
kind of like that sometimes.
Here's my deal with Sam Ehlinger. when I look at him, and we all agree, nobody's expecting him to be 2008 Colt McCoy. Now, if he is that, it would be,
amazing.
Number one, a complete surprise, and number two, we'll all be jumping for joy because it means this program has finally found a quarterback.
We're in the championship game.
I've always said, and I don't know if we discussed on this show, the ideal quarterback for Tom Herman, I've often said, is Colt McCoy.
I agree with you on
the
that.
ideal guy that he wants, and you go look at it, the way a coach recruits quarterbacks or whoever he brings in for his quarterback, it'll tell you a lot about that coach and the way he thinks and what he prioritizes. If you look at the quarterbacks who Tom Herman goes after, because he doesn't necessarily go after always just the top dogs. Like, he just kind of has crushes on guys. He likes guys. He likes their skill set.
Fit.
Whatever. It's a fit, whatever, compatibility. Colt McCoy is his ideal quarterback. That's his dream quarterback.
Right. So you look at where Sam Ehlinger is in the pecking order, though, Rod, in the Big 12. And this is a year where there's a lot of turnover at the quarterback position within the conference. Oklahoma State's breaking in a new quarterback. Oklahoma, it's probably going to be Kyler Murray, unless if he gets drafted high enough in baseball, which that's going to be maybe the most interesting storyline in college football to follow this summer, especially with the draft right around the corner. TCU's going with Sean Robinson with Kenny Hill out. So you look at the pecking order quarterbacks in this league, and really after Will Grier, it's kind of up for grabs as to who the next guy is. And you look at Athlon's All Big 12 team. Athlon is the first publication that I've seen come out with an All Big 12 team.
I saw that.
And they go 4 deep at each position group.
A lot of work.
And their first team quarterback is Will Grier. Second team quarterback is Charlie Brewer from Baylor, right up the road here at Lake Travis.
My mom taught him.
Kyle Kemp at Iowa State, who I think is a really good quarterback. And then Sam Ehlinger is the 4th-team quarterback. And you might say, well, his 4th-team All-Big 12 is not that big a deal. But, Rod, if you get to – and this is all based on projections on how these guys are going to perform. That's how Athlon does it. They don't necessarily look at last year's stats and kind of just plug guys in.
What they're going to
trying
throw
to
for
project.
this year. So projecting a big season for, say, Baylor's passing game.
So if Sam Ehlinger ends the year as a top 4 quarterback in the league, what would you say happens to this offense?
And I think he could do that, considering,
he could be
as
the
you
best
pointed out,
in the context of the conference.
Considering like the quarterbacks that left the conference, Mason Rudolph, Baker Mayfield, most notably. If that is the case, then I think you're looking at a Texas team that could possibly lean closer to 9 wins, possibly even 10 wins, rather than a team that is trending towards 7 or 8 wins. I think it may mean another win, whatever your projection. I think most people's projection is they're 7 or 8 win team.
I'm at 8-4.
I was at they're a 7 or 8 win
Right.
team, depending on how much you like this team or you like what's coming back. I'm with you. I'm kind of an 8-win team right now. I think I can lean toward 8.5, which would put them around 9. If Sam Ehlinger's playing really well, I mean, that could be a 9. I think Mark Schlabach recently said, "Hey man, I think Texas is a 9 or 10 win team."
Yeah,
and I think that's based on if Sam Ehlinger plays well, if there's no quarterback carousel happening, if all of the graduate transfers can be immediate impact players, which they're expected to be, and Todd Orlando, who most people believe is the most stable force, all right, on the Texas campus right now with the Texas football program, that if he continued to show his defensive genius, Texas will be an 8 or 9 win team. Not necessarily because Texas is that good, they're trending in the right direction, but because the Big 12's quarterbacks,
Right.
Their perennial veteran quarterbacks have left, most notably Baker Mayfield and Mason Rudolph.
Yeah, and that's where, it's always good if, say, the rest of the conference's quarterbacks aren't returning. But in the modern age, too, I'd say that right now is the time where it's the least amount of impact than it's had compared to a decade ago. A decade ago, new quarterback coming in, you weren't necessarily expecting decent production. Nowadays, you have guys come in and with just the modern offenses and freshmen being able to contribute, it isn't what it used to be. A decade or 2 decades ago, that was a huge deal. This year, maybe not as much, but still worth noting.
5 of the Big 12's top 6 quarterbacks in passing yards per game graduated or transferred. For Texas' 2018 schedule, Todd Orlando will have, I think, 6 offenses that he'll face that lost their primary signal caller last season. So it's good for Todd Orlando, but it's bad for the Big 12, but it's good for Texas. Texas has their veterans coming back.
Because if you win the Big 12 and you don't lose, you're going to be in.
Yeah.
And then even if you do lose and you're Texas or OU and beat the other one, you'll still probably be in.
Yeah, still got USC. I don't know what the hell USC's doing.
Yeah.
So they'll have a new quarterback coming. I mean, Will Greer is the standard right now coming back.
We're like the opposite of last year where we faced all the
you faced the
quarterbacks.
best quarterbacks in the country.
And then luckily the home and home, you
Yeah.
get that reciprocated.
I mean, NFL scouts were saying, I forgot what
Just
scout
watch
said
the
that?
film.
Mike Mayock was the
Mike
one who
Mayock,
was
yeah,
a
you
big
talked that up.
proponent of.
He was saying, Texas defense is all over the place.
Just
'cause I'm
watch
watching
Texas.
these quarterbacks. Yeah.
You keeping notes on your phone now, Rod?
No, I just
didn't know.
Like,
I didn't know if you were going digital.
I take screenshots of stuff now,
Smart.
instead of just always writing it down. I'm doing both now.
Okay.
Yeah, I know.
What was that from that you were
21st
just citing
century.
right there?
Actually, that was an article, and I should get him credit. Yeah, Burnt Orange Nation had that.
Okay.
It was a good.
So when we look at Sam Ehlinger, and if he ends up being a top 4 quarterback in the league in a year where quarterback production, and to Matt, to your point, talking about just the difference, it used to be. You find something interesting, Matt, or what? I just saw your face.
I just saw
so I'll let
Texas's
you-
win total actually isn't. I was thinking it'd be at 7.5, which would make sense. Actually, down at 7. So I don't know. I almost want to say that's good number to bet on if you think Texas. I mean, you get instead that half is huge because a 7's a loss, 8's a win. If it's at 7, when it's at 7, depending on the book, you either have the push potential, so you need 6. I think they're going to win more than 6.
Definitely win more than 6.
Yes, there you go.
Yeah.
So might look into that.
Okay.
Good
Thanks
point.
for the
That is a
advice.
nice one.
Oklahoma's at 10.5, way too high.
You know,
Way
what's-
too high.
You know, I guess with the Supreme Court ruling, it's not going to be that much longer before we can openly talk about
Well, we already
what?
can.
The FIPO lines ain't going to be FIPO anymore
Yeah,
for entertainment
that's
purposes
exactly right.
only. Yeah.
No
Well, now
question
you don't
about
have to worry about being
The-
prosecuted for it.
Exactly.
The NCAA is most opposed to this legalized sports.
Of
betting.
course.
Aren't they opposed to everything?
Except for
no,
cheating.
because there's the most
and
potential.
all the crimes.
No, it's the most potential for corruption in NCAA because players in the NFL, Major League Baseball, and NBA, it's going to be hard to get those
Not
guys to throw a
incentivized.
damn game. They're getting paid millions of dollars. But for these kids who are being taken advantage of, we all agree with that. Student athletes, you can easily get them to throw some kind of game by offering them a ton of money. So that's why the NCAA is really pissed off. The NFL, the Major League Baseball, and NBA, they're freaked out about the officials. So now they got to start paying their officials more. Because if you want to throw a game, all you got to do, and there's a little proof to kind of back this up, is you got to get to an official. All right, you get to an official. That guy's got some debt. He's got this. He's got that. Boom.
So getting back to Texas, to Matt's
Outta
point
here.
a few minutes ago, it used to be when you're breaking in a true freshman quarterback, that meant you were in complete rebuild mode.
Yeah.
Not the case anymore because these kids are coming from systems where it's almost like it used to be like Texas Tech used to be the kind of plug and play system.
Yeah.
Just damn near everybody in the country now is plug and play because these kids are coming from spread offenses in high school. The verbiage might be a little bit different, but once they understand,
Exactly right.
this to us means this in your old offense. Oh, okay, I
okay.
got it.
Yeah.
Conceptually, they understand what they're doing.
They're spread
Yep.
babies.
I mean, we didn't know we were watching it with Colt McCoy his freshman year in 06, but that's exactly what was happening.
Spread babies.
Yeah.
So when you start looking at the rest of the Big 12, it should be understood that one of these young quarterbacks, or not young in some cases with the grad transfer coming from Hawaii to Oklahoma State, but one of these guys, whether it's Kyler Murray or Sean Robinson, one of these guys that's pretty unproven, is going to end up being really good for their team.
I agree with that.
So
Especially that Lincoln Riley system.
and you might look at the Big 12 and say, yeah, Sam Ehlinger could really, and we might poo-poo it and say, well, the league's down a little bit, but you look at the TCU situation, the Oklahoma situation, those are two talented kids that were highly recruited, so you figure, I mean, you're probably going to get something from one of them, maybe both of them if they hit. And, Rod, maybe the most intriguing quarterback situation to me in the Big 12 is K-State because, number one, nobody ever really knows what you're going to get from K-State until you line up whatever week you're playing K-State.
You don't know who it'll be, but you know it'll be
But-
pretty good production.
Right.
I remember playing K-State. We just talked about that game, and, man, that quarterback, was it Delton? Was his
Alex
name?
Delton.
Man, he ran all up and down the field on that Orlando
Oh, yeah.
defense.
We got lucky on that.
And, Skylar Thompson played really well at the end of the year, but all indications are they're going to go with Alex Delton as their guy.
Really?
That's the latest I'm hearing. And if they end up going with Alex Delton, that kind of fits more the type of guy that Snyder's had success with, kind of like Colin Klein type mode, Jake Waters and cats like that were really more of the true like dual threat type guys.
Yeah.
So you take that into consideration, and if Sam Ehlinger is a top 4 quarterback in the league by the time it's all said and done, maybe that's not like, oh, well, the rest of the league was bad. No, this league is still going to be able to produce. This league is still going to produce.
Yeah, Will Greer's a first-round quarterback projected right now.
Right.
Kyler Murray, as you pointed out, in that Lincoln Riley system. I'll tell you right now, NFL head coaches, after watching Baker Mayfield and breaking him down, they are in love with that Lincoln Riley offense.
That's what I keep hearing.
They say it is the most creative and innovative offense in college football right now. Yeah. And I was like shocked. I was like, damn, because I love Scott Frost's offense. I think his offense is amazing.
Well, Belichick was so intrigued.
Kelly's got an offense. If you forgot, Chip Kelly's still in college football now. Yeah. His offense is badass. So I heard numerous NFL analysts say no after watching Baker Mayfield film. They are really thinking about either bringing him up, like actually calling him up, and people are considering him for a head coaching job or an offensive coordinator position. And I know the Cleveland Browns are going to basically bring him up the way just Shanahan's brought up Art Browse to deal with RG3 and to basically transition him. They're going to do the same thing with Lincoln Riley. But, yeah, that offense apparently is – if you could be a star in it, and apparently a lot of people think that Kyler Murray is more – compatible and tailor-made for it than even Baker was. But I think Baker Mayfield's the greatest air raid spread quarterback that's ever played college football. And
it's hard to disagree,
right? If you look at it, I mean, you can,
or high school. I'll go there too.
Yeah, just the air raid, and
just ever since he started playing football.
Exactly. So he was brought up.
I was there the first game when he started at Lake Travis,
because that's kind of an air raid system too, with air raid rules that they run there. Then with Cliff Kingsbury, who's also a child of the air raid. Then with Lincoln Riley at Oklahoma, a child of the air raid, and they're purebreds, which means they came right from Mike Leach, pretty much.
Right.
They're really close to that tree. They're all different versions of it. And the Big 12 is an air raid conference. Dana Hogan and all those guys. Even TCU. Hell,
Sonny
Cumbie. So I think that Baker Mayfield has really upped Lincoln Riley's status.
Yeah, and that's where overall. When you heard the quotes from Mayfield's agent just talking about the Patriots' interest, and a lot of people sort of just said, "Oh, that's just an agent talking." It was like, no, when you've heard people talk in the back offices or the front offices and talk about those two teams, it's like that interest was so high, and it was probably because, like how you said, Belichick likes to pick the brains of any great football mind, and if you can streamline and get the quarterback with that type of experience that he knows has mastered that style, it's future of the NFL. The next decade is going to be most similar to the past decade of college football. So that's that sort of guy that he could have. He had a Garoppolo, didn't have it, and was hoping that he could maybe get away with a Mayfield.
My frame of reference is limited to coaching clinics and what I pick up from talking
that's the best stuff.
Other writers and people in the Big 12. But last year when I went to Todd Orlando's deal out at the Angelo Clinic, Lincoln Riley was up next. So I got done with Todd Orlando in kind of the closed door session, and Lincoln Riley still had another half hour left. And his was basically how they use the running backs within their passing game. And you're watching cut-ups and watching them explain it, and you're like, man, this is some sophisticated stuff that I haven't really seen. And you watch it how he's explaining it, and you're like, man, this is some next-level stuff right here.
Exactly, and that's why people who don't know about the air raid and its roots, there used to be a stigma on it that it was so simplistic, and that's why the quarterbacks don't work in the NFL because they're not doing anything. The truth is, you ask Mike Leach, every quarterback from the Mike Leach era has a story about Mike Leach yelling at them and cussing them out for not taking hold of the ownership of the offense at the line of scrimmage and calling their own plays.
And the evolution of it.
Exactly, because once I teach it to you, then it's your system. It ain't mine anymore. That's why all the best offensive coaches in the country right now are Mike Leach disciples.
Right.
Because he gave them the offense and the keys to it long ago. So now NFL teams are just starting to learn that air raid quarterbacks actually do call a lot of protections at the line of scrimmage. They do actually change the plays. It's not as simplistic as most people assume that it is.
Can I give you a good example?
Go ahead.
When and this speaks to why Will Greer is valued as an NFL prospect now, having played for Dana Holgorsen. When Dana Holgorsen was the OC at Oklahoma State, I was talking to guys in the Denton Geyer staff about Gerard Hurd. And because J.W. Walsh, John Walsh's son, was a quarterback at Oklahoma State, and this kind of it's one of those hindsight deals. I probably should have picked up on it then. They're like, Gerard couldn't play quarterback at Oklahoma State. And I said, why? There's way too much stuff in that offense to process. And they're like, Gerard just kind of a single read guy and go. Like Gerard, they said Gerard would be great at Baylor where it's kind of predetermined, boom, roll with it.
Yeah.
But at Oklahoma State, your quarterback. He's calling out protections. He's doing basically quarterback does everything at the line of scrimmage. Like he's got to call out the protection. He's got to make his checks. He's in charge of all of it. at the line of scrimmage.
And then when you talk about just the evolution in the way that just in the last, I'd say, 20 years, it's became more of a conceptual-based offensive attack across all sports instead of necessarily X's and O's or memorizing plays. You're memorizing in this situation when I see this, it's sort of like how you would read keys of a receiver, that you do that to where now the offense is not reacting, or the defense isn't reacting to the offense. It's the opposite. It's what the defense gives you. And it's the same idea in basketball where you see less half-court sets and it's just more free-flowing.
More switching.
So
then
switching
now.
That's why the same idea that the first quarterbacks in the air raid system maybe had not all grasped, but then now when it becomes more of a norm,
babies too.
And they're evolving, and now they step in it, and then they can, off of every single play, well, now we can add a run-pass option, or we can have a slant and go off of it, and then like the idea is that each player, then it can just evolve to a level that now you aren't even running plays, and you hear sometimes coaches will be critical that he couldn't draw anything up on the board, and it's like, well, because we aren't necessarily drawing up one option and this is our play. It's going to be while the play goes on, you could change three or four times inside of it.
It happened to Cam Newton. Remember, he was with John Gruden, and John Gruden asked him, he said, give me some play verbiage, spit out a play for me, and Cam was like, we don't just have plays like that. We don't. You know what I mean?
If the defense shows something, we're going to react to us.
And then we check to this, and then we have a option of plays, and based on what the defense is giving me, boom, we kill this play, kill that play, and everybody knows we're going with a certain play. And so it is kind of what you said about the conceptual thing. It is. I mean, what our Brown said, I didn't have a playbook. I didn't have a playbook, no.
Baylor didn't know.
I didn't have a playbook.
Don't have to memorize all these things and make you think and not react.
Yeah, so I know you're right about that. I think that's why the air raid is developing. Back in its infancy, that was not the case. Now it's way more complex.
It's just new ideas, and longer time goes by, new ideas become more accepted. It's like that just across all things, not just sports.
So to take it back to Texas, when we look at this offense with Sam Ehlinger in year 2, we didn't see much of a high percentage passing game with Sam Ehlinger.
No, we didn't.
It felt like at times like we probably should have.
I agree, because he actually can be at K-State game is a prime example. Like he can be accurate when he didn't have a lot of time either. Let's be honest.
He threw it 50 times. He was 30 for 50.
I didn't know he threw it that much.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah, we were making and he ran it 20 times.
I didn't know he threw it 50 times.
He ran it 20.
That's his most pass attempts in a game, right?
I'll venture out on a limb and say that's the most plays by a quarterback. 50 pass attempts, 20 rushes.
Okay, so there
that's
you go.
all usage.
See, I didn't know that.
That's Westbrook. He was our Westbrook, basically, of an offense, taking it all.
Those stats match the eye test we just discussed, that they were using the pass to open the door. So way he was going deep a lot of times. They actually used play action, too, on early downs in that K-State game. Something else I remember from watching that game.
And I bet a lot of RPOs are this because he can throw or
I'll go back and find my notes from that game because I keep all my notes from the game.
He
and I'll go
threw
back and
it
look at those.
for Sam Ehlinger's high pass attempts, 50 against K-State, was it? He threw it 40 times against SC, 47 against Texas.
It was
Tech.
overtime.
It was overtime. So
K-State
was
overtime.
And so was USC, right? So
39 against Oklahoma, 36 against Oklahoma State.
She threw it.
Did Texas have more overtime games this past year than like the whole Mac Brown era?
Yes,
probably.
I think.
I think so.
I do believe that is the case.
Yeah, because there was there was one that I remembered.
But I think you got to work with what Tom Herman's going to do is kind of work with the talent that he has this year, because obviously still not the ideal personnel for your pro spread offense, as he calls it. But you're getting closer. Look at the tight end position. You'll have running backs that are playmakers soon that can kind of, guys that can be game changers, who can disrupt the space-time continuum. You need a guy like that. You don't have a guy like that right now. Now you just got, Jags back there. Nothing against them, but they can move the chains. They can't change the game. Keontae Ingram, from what I heard, is a game changer. So you're getting guys, and then your wide receiver position right now, I don't know how you can't take. You got freaks out there, man. Colin Johnson's a freak and matchup nightmare. So is John Burt and Duvernay because of their track speed.
Right.
You know what I mean? And little Jordan Humphrey is probably the best of the bunch as an overall skill set as a wide receiver.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. That's why you got to open up the offense with the passing game first, because that's your strength. Get the ball in those guys' hands. Those are the guys who the defense should be afraid of, who they are afraid of. I can tell you that right now.
Which
they ain't afraid of the running game.
Which just I'm short circuiting somewhere, because I'm thinking back to last year, and they threw the ball a lot, but some of those were throwaways, and there was pressure, and you taking taking into consideration all the factors. Yeah. But I go back to what the knock on Tim Beck was as an offensive coordinator. Right, from talking to people from his time in Nebraska and his time at Ohio State, and the one kind of common thread was, and I think it was somebody in Nebraska that told me this.
Yeah.
And that, hey, if Tim Beck had his druthers, he would throw the ball every play.
Yeah.
Well, you've got an offensive coordinator a play caller who likes throwing the football.
Tendency.
With a quarterback who needs, and even Buechele is better, like the numbers suggest and the analytics suggest when it's a high percentage, quick
West
passing
Coast
game. Right.
He is better.
Which would also benefit Ellinger.
Gets him in a rhythm,
And you've got this bevy of receivers, which were clearly your strength offensively last year.
And still this year.
Why didn't it work the way it probably should have? Like, why was the passing game lacking? Like, where was the disconnect?
I would say number one, because obviously there was a problem with the receivers because they made a change.
Right.
So number one, we know there was something there, and I always said that you had. I mean, it's crazy how multi-layered it is, right? So Texas didn't have a great offensive line. So Shane and Sam are both running for their lives. What was our biggest complaint about the wide receivers last year?
They're awful in scramble drill situations. That was mine.
Drill. Couldn't reset the play once the play had broken down, and it seemed like
still aren't great. Did you watch the spring game?
Yeah, they still weren't great at it. And in the spring game, you really don't even have a need to do it that often. But my point is, Sam Ehlinger, that's what he's going to do 50% of the time.
Right.
Like that's going to be Sam's passing. He's going to drop back, play's going to break down, and then he's going to start roaming. You know what I mean?
Go back and look at the final drive against USC, the final regulation drive. Who are the two receivers? Who are the two most important guys on that drive? Lil Jordan Humphrey and Amani Foreman. Two guys who were clearly your two best scramble drill wide receivers.
No question about it. And Lil Jordan Humphrey is right now the best scramble drill wide receiver. But the fact that you don't have Colin Johnson trained as to where to go and put his 6'6" frame right, in between the defensive back and and the football, that's something that he should be trained to do. He should be a nightmare on a scramble drill. It's going to happen a lot. So I think that hurt Texas' ability to make plays down the field, but also chemistry. Let's be honest. You got to quarterbacks, they end up finding they have tendencies too with guys they like. They figure out, this guy's going to be here on this route. Oh, Monty running that 6 route. He's money. Watch me get, you know what I mean? Like they know, on the deep ball, I already know how this guy's going to fade it. He's going to fade it here. I got to make sure I throw it out there to John Burt. How many deep throws they missed in the spring game?
Yeah.
Deep ball. You know what I mean? Like
early on, a couple.
It's like, damn, man, how you overthrow a track star?
How you overthrow John Burt? Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
So I think a lot of it is chemistry. You gain that when you are the guy and you're working with the same players over and over again. That hasn't happened with Texas because we're still in a quarterback competition.
Yeah. So is this just as simple as being able to, and we talked about it, whatever Tom Herman tells us publicly doesn't really matter in terms of who his starter is.
No.
But if it's Sam Ehlinger, I think you got to make that decision pretty early in camp that he's your guy.
Yeah, you want to get some chemistry, man. You need some chemistry between those wide receivers and their quarterback. And right now, that's one thing they did not have last year.
No.
They just didn't. That's why they haven't, honestly, not last year. They haven't had that for like the last 3 or 4 years.
Since Shipley left.
Since John Harris.
Oddly
was John Harris and was it Tyrone Fuchs? They had a thing going on.
It was amazing.
And you can never explain that wide receiver quarterback chemistry. You cannot. It is so random. Like who the hell thought John Harris and Tyrone Fuchs would have it going on?
Yeah. It's not like I think David Ashton, Mike Davis did for a little bit when Ashton was healthy.
You get a groove with somebody, man. It's just like meeting somebody. It's like, hey, man, we hit it off. Me and that guy, we cool. We think alike or whatever. It's like chemistry. It is actually something you cannot quantify. So we don't even know who Sam Ehlinger has chemistry with. We should know that. We should know, we know Coach was going to Jordan when times got tough. Yep. We just knew it. It's like, hey, he's going to Shipley. Yeah, he likes Quan, but he's going to Shipley when times get tough.
And I think the one he went to the most and had one of the best catch rates is probably not on the team anymore in Hemphill. But and then LJ, like,
I didn't think about that, but you're right. So yeah, I think that's something we don't talk about because you can't really quantify, but that's a big deal, man. Yeah. I agree with you. That's why you got to name that quarterback as soon as possible. When you know, if you don't know, that's fine. But when you know, and I think all of this is really a part of. Matter of fact, I just read an article where they mentioned 247 Sports. How many 5-star quarterbacks have they had in the last 9 years?
Oh, gosh, I need to pull this
up
because Chris Hummer did this article.
No, I got the stat because I took a screenshot of it because I was like,
I think Chris did it from 2010 to 2017.
And nationally or Big 12?
There have been 5 quarterbacks from 2015 and 2017 that have now transferred.
Oh, yeah.
Hunter Johnson is the latest. Jacob Eason, Shea Patterson, Malik Henry, Blake Barnett.
Yeah, of the
Kyler Murray, Jarrett Stidham.
Of the 16 5-star quarterbacks in the composite to earn a 5-star rating since 2010, Hunter Johnson from Clemson was the 10th that's transferred.
That's a ton.
Wow. Hold Hold up. Give me that again. 16 since
16
2010?
since 2010, 16
yeah,
five-star quarterbacks,
that's
according
what
to
I
the
heard.
composite. 10 have transferred.
Yeah.
This is more from Chris's article, and this is actually on my Twitter feed.
Yeah, it's a
anybody
great article.
listening
I
to
read
this
that.
wants to go get it
Yeah, it's really
at
good.
Jeff Howe 247. It's on my Twitter timeline. Chris writes, these are the best of the best coming out of high school at football's most important position, but 62.5% of them have transferred away from their initial school at one point or another in their career.
So
and it's only going to see that go up.
And think about this. So it's almost one of those things. It's like more money, more problems, right? I want the problems that people with money have. Oh man, I'm being taxed too damn much.
Yep.
I'm being taxed on my millions. Well, I would love to be taxed on my millions. You know what I mean? I want that problem. When you're a blue blood football program, this is a problem you want to have.
Yeah.
I got too many damn 5-star quarterbacks. Well, I guess one of y'all gonna have to go. You know what I mean? Like you want to be Alabama, where Tua's in there, and then you got Jalen Hurts in there. Georgia,
You bring in your freshman backup, and
right?
he's better.
Georgia's dealing with that. So what happens is it's a cycle, right? You're either gonna benefit from it, or it's going to hurt your program. Hopefully, you start cycling them in and out to the point where, and Texas is going to get there too. I think Tom Herman's trying to avoid this. Is my whole point. Where, hey, like Oklahoma, yeah, we lost one guy, but we got another one. You know, we got two, as a matter of fact. We got Kyler Murray, we got Baker Mayfield. Yeah, we lost Trevor Knight. You know what I mean? That's how it's going to happen. You're going to lose a guy.
Texas was like that at one point.
Exactly, but you didn't make sure you're bringing in somebody too, so you can never stop recruiting quarterbacks, man.
Nope.
And for Tom Herman, I think this is what he's doing. Tom Herman's really smart. He's smarter than all of us. He sees this trend. So basically, there's at least a 50% chance that your quarterback, whoever they are, I don't give a damn if they are a 4-star or 3-star, they're going to transfer.
And
the stats now say that. Like, there's a 50% chance. Like, whoever steps on campus to play quarterback at your institution will transfer. That doesn't include the injury rate. That doesn't include the bust rate. That doesn't include the guy that switches positions. So think about what the actual success rate of a quarterback actually is now in college football for an institution. It's got to be around, you got a 30 to 25% success rate,
And
maybe 40% at best. You know
But
what I mean?
there's
Hell,
still
look at
the good
Sam Ehlinger.
side.
He's great. But he couldn't even make it through half the year because he got hurt. You know what I mean? Like that's how tough it is for quarterbacks. So never stop recruiting them. They're like socks and underwear. You can never have too many. And hell yeah, I support Tom Herman. I wouldn't name a starting quarterback publicly until I had to, because I want to keep Shane Buechele on that line as long as possible till he can't transfer. And I know, yeah, you screw over a young man potentially when you do that, but Shane Buechele, you got to see the writing on the wall. The kid that transferred from Clemson did. They got the number one quarterback in the country coming. He wasn't no scrub. He's a 5-star quarterback. But he's like, you know what? I got a senior in front of me. Last year, when that senior who was a junior and got hurt, they put another quarterback in and not me. And they got the number one quarterback in the country coming. You know what? Writing on the wall. Peace.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's up to Shane to see that writing on the wall. You're behind the curtain, young man. If you see it and they're not going to give you a fair shot in your opinion, or if they're going to go with Sam and that's it, then you have all the rights to transfer. He may not want to transfer. He may be comfortable here. He may not feel like Sam can make it through a year and he can beat out Sam. All of that is fair. My point is, as Tom Herman, you can't worry about that. You got to stockpile him, keep bringing him in. That's why he's got 4 in there now. He's going to recruit another quarterback next year because he knows one of those 4 quarterbacks in that room right now is transferring.
Yeah, and I mean, even
Guaranteed.
if, say, Buechele doesn't want to transfer, he still may have to because of the modern culture that it is, and it's cool to see in this past decade, basically like post-Russell Wilson, there's an emerging whole new market for quarterbacks that now,
Exactly right.
if your quarterback isn't good, you can go out and the grad transfer is already there, but then you can already go and sort of put your eyes out because you just recruited this kid a year ago, and now he's not happy, and he has a relationship with these guys, and you can get these kids, so it's only going to cause the numbers to go up. You're going to only have more transfers because you still have an opportunity somewhere else, somebody else. You can go take advantage of that if you have a void, and now you can make your decision about your quarterback. You don't have to worry about 4-year windows. You don't got it that first 2 years. We ain't got time for that. I'm going to get fired if I don't fire you, so I got to go find another one.
Goes full circle to what Jeff said at the beginning of the show about plug-in play kind of formulas now in college football. These quarterbacks know, I can go somewhere and have immediate success because of the systems, and they're looking at success stories like Baker Mayfield that take you all the way to the number 1 overall pick. Those success stories, Cam Newton's, those success stories of transfers, these guys aren't scared of that market anymore.
And then if you look at the grades, I mean, I remember hearing it first when it was Garrett Gilbert transferring out and how fast he graduated in less than 3 years now too, that you can have that grad transfer. And I just had 2 cousins graduate college, one of which is barely 21 after 3 years, because nowadays you have so much of this dual credit in high school that these kids come in and you can transfer even earlier because you can be a grad transfer and only be a football sophomore going into your junior year. The way that Garrett Gilbert played one game of his third year, and then he was out, and he did that as a grad transfer. So it can just be even quicker these days.
Here's something I want to close the show talking about this. When we talk about Sam Ehlinger and Rod, you mentioned the plug and play, and we talked about, it's not uncommon to see freshmen step in and play big roles. And I know everybody's tired of seeing that around here because Texas got to get out of the habit of playing true freshman quarterbacks because you don't have anything else. But maybe this is just me, like my off-season brain. I'm already at the point where I'm fried and I'm ready for like something of substance, and I'm reading into it too much. But every time Tom Herman's asked about quarterbacks, he goes out of his way to mention Cameron Rising and Casey Thompson.
He does.
And, Rod, you talked about the perfect kind of quarterback Tom Herman wants. I look at Cameron Rising's skill set, and I think, this kid has what people would describe as a prototypical arm. He can fling it at 6'4", 230-plus pounds, so you can run the quarterback powers. He can hold up.
Sure.
And –
nice frame
and Tom Herman has it publicly. Now, privately could be totally different. But publicly, he's maintained that, hey, the two young kids have an uphill – it's an uphill battle for them to win the job. But they're still going to be given a chance to go compete.
Yeah.
Am I crazy thinking that there's an outside chance that maybe, just maybe, as much as we're talking about Sam Ehlinger, that maybe the best quarterback for this team and the best quarterback for this offense right now and the best quarterback for the future of this program, what if it's Cameron Rising?
That'd be good news.
What if it is?
And I say that now because
awesome.
if he plays, you're not playing because it's like, man, we don't have anybody else. You've got two guys that have some skins on the wall.
He'd play because he's the best one.
Exactly. And you're in a position right now to where if he's your guy, you're making him the guy because you're like, hey, he's the best we got.
You just made two guys transfer, probably.
He's better than these two.
So wouldn't you rather redshirt him if you knew he was the guy rather than him play right away?
That's a tough deal.
That's a gamble on his
Texas
Tom's time.
It is. Well, I think we all agree Tom's safer than Charlie was, so Tom will get 5 where Charlie only got 3. Even if he's
so then in that case, then yes.
But would you rather redshirt him because that guarantees you your Colt McCoy or your Vince Young? If you see it in this guy, you've seen it before because those are the most transcendent quarterbacks in Texas football history. And if he leaves early, great. That means he's that damn good.
But you only get 2 years.
To go to the league,
True.
If he leaves early to go to the league, that's a more money, more problem situation.
But point being,
that's a problem I want to have. I want to have the problem where, oh man,
he might be good enough. No,
to go get drafted top 5 in the league.
Let's think logically about this, though.
You know what I mean? So logically, I'm just saying, Chris Sims, if he redshirts, he's a better quarterback. We all agree.
Yeah.
Okay. So ideally, you would like to redshirt those guys. That puts you out of the cycle of bringing guys in and having them play right away because you've been in quarterback hell so long. And so I'm going to say, if you know that's the guy, you right now focus on the 2 guys that are going to play right away. And I would focus on redshirting that kid because right now all you're doing is mucking up the quarterback situation. You make him, if he ends up becoming the starter, and I'm not saying that if he's the best quarterback out there, period, then he's the starting. But he's not the best quarterback out there. He's not. If he was, we'd know that by now.
Right.
You know what I mean? That would have come out. He's not the best quarterback out there. So my point
is, it's hard to imagine that happening in this 2 months leading up to camp.
Exactly. Right. So even if at training camp he's getting close to their level, you're like, damn, man.
No, you're right about
that. He's pretty close to Shane and Sam already. I would redshirt him.
Yeah, because there's no upside there if it's the same.
Yeah, because
let me ask
close,
you this.
Then that means next year he's going to surpass both of them, and then that's when I'll make that kind of
Let
move.
me ask you this.
Right now it's too much risk and less benefit.
Your last year on the 40, you were on the practice field with a young Vince Young who redshirted.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Was it? Is that kind of where you're thinking, where you look at him and everybody knows, but you're really investing in the future?
We know. But, you know what I mean? You don't want to listen, you just came off a quarterback controversy. It's kind of similar, too, if you're Mac. All right? And you bring in the best quarterback in the state, one of the top quarterbacks in the country, and everybody's expecting big things from him. But, hell, you still got, Sims there, and I think at the time,
Chance Mock, Nordco were both
Matt
there.
Norgum. Yeah, so you got, exactly. You got some guys there, but looking at the rate of development, holy Chicago, if this kid gets, even close to the level of these guys, he's going to surpass them like that because he's got way more potential. His ceiling is way higher.
Definitely wasn't a spread baby, though.
Exactly.
So there was a long learning curve.
It was a longer learning. Yeah, so I that's why I would want to redshirt some of those quarterbacks. Because I remember seeing Vince Young and going, all right, well, damn, I wish he was a freshman when I was a freshman so I could be with him as a quarterback. And I had a damn good one. I had a 5-star quarterback. who was damn good for
Top
us. You know what I
national.
mean? Yeah, who thought about transferring, which all 5-star quarterbacks are going to think about doing at one point. And that's major. I'm sure he thought about it at one point. So, yeah, I would try. You got 4 quarterbacks in the quarterback room for the first time since when? 2012, I believe it was?
I think
2012, 2011, and 2006. I believe
Somewhere
are the
G.J.
years
Kinney,
where you have 4 quarter. The last 3 years you've had 4
G.J. and
quarterbacks,
Sherrod.
and that's because why? What happens in 2006?
And
Well,
John
you
Childs,
lost
yeah.
Vince Young. So you know what? I don't know who's going to be the quarterback. Let's load up the quarterback room. 2011 and 12. What happened? Garrett Gilbert. He who shall not be named happened. So it's like I don't know who's going to be starting the quarterback. Let's bring in as many quarterbacks as possible. And right now, I think Tom Herman is kind of thinking what you're thinking. I don't know who the hell is going to be the quarterback of the future for Texas. So I'm just piling quarterbacks in that room until one of them separates themselves from the pack, and then we'll make the decision.
That's
I think
a process.
So it's kind of survival of the fittest right now. So I agree with you. I think the quarterback of the future, although we're living in the present, we're dealing with Sam Ellinger and Shane Buechele, and if somebody's going to transfer and whether Sam can take to the next level, the quarterback of the future may be among Casey Thompson and Cameron Wright.
He is, and then you have the president, and if one of those happens to take over the president, that's only good.
Let me say this, too, because I think people might get it twisted. Because I think there's a tendency of Texas fans to it happened with Shane Buechele, and it's happening right now with Sam Ellinger, where you look at the guy as a freshman, he struggles like, this guy sucks. Next, who's next? Get the next guy in here.
That guy's a bum.
That's not what this is. But Tom Herman's at a point, Rod, where I think I'm not saying it would make or break his tenure depending on which way he went, but it's a situation I don't envy him being in because and we're going on the hypothetical that Cameron Rising is that good. Cameron Rising might not ever play a meaningful down to Texas.
Yeah, he might be Nordco.
Which, by the way, Nordco's a rare breed,
total
like
package,
the rare breed for the top quarterback in the state. You gonna transfer? Nah, I'm good.
I'm good.
Good, I'm gonna hang out.
He wasn't a trust fund baby, but Norco comes from money, so it wasn't a big deal to him. And he loved Austin, loved the nightlife and all that kind of stuff. And he didn't
Anybody
mind,
that's seen his reality show could probably tell.
He wasn't trying to compete with Sims. He didn't care, and all those guys and Chance Mark and Vince Young. He knew where he was. He did a better self-evaluation than any other coach could have ever done on him. He always was like, I'm good. I'm good.
No, you don't want to do that, man.
You transfer to
Did you see me run the ball against Baylor?
I'm going out tonight, right after practice. I'm going straight to 6th Street. Yeah.
Wasn't there that game
where
where
I'm the total package.
And he was. I would say Nordco, man, Nordco closed on, man, he used to text multiple women. I hope he don't mind me telling them a story, but don't tell Nordco.
He had a dating show with multiple women.
This is true.
So,
He's a reality TV, so
this was public.
He would text 8 girls to meet him at the same place. Just inviting disaster.
Because he wants them fighting.
Yes. He would invite them to this reality show brawl.
He was ahead of his time,
it was
man.
like he was the Bachelor, and all these women were coming to defend for him, and it was the craziest thing. But it would work every time. He would leave with 3 of them, and they were like, "What are they going to do?
Which ones worked together?"
He was. That's why he was classic. That's why he was.
So Nordco was clearly ahead
he was
of
closing
his
the
time.
deal. Yeah, he was.
And a rare breed, and we don't see guys like Nordco anymore. Yeah. So anyway, I just want to restate. I'm not stating this. We're going off the premise that Cameron Rising is the guy for the future. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. But if you're Tom Herman, you're at that point in your tenure where it could go a number of different ways. If you decide to stick with the 2 vets, as you said, Rod, and redshirt the young kid, well, what if you have another 6-6 year?
Yeah.
Then you're kind of loading up the pressure for year 3.
Right.
Or what if you decide to throw the young kid in, and it doesn't work, and then you've got another true freshman quarterback that I don't know how this kid's going to recover psychologically and everything. He got beat up a little bit.
Roll the dice.
Yeah, it's
a risk.
And it goes back to whether you're talking about recruiting, player development in college, the draft, or player development in the NFL. Man, until you put the ball down and a guy gets behind center and the bright lights are on,
you don't know.
You have no idea. Nobody knows.
Everybody's taking.
Tom Herman doesn't know any different from me. They know any different from Rod. They know any different than the guy sitting up in the nosebleed seats.
Yeah, you got a theory that you may have a higher success rate than the other person, but we're all taking educated guesses. And I agree with you. When the quarterback actually
at that position.
Yeah, at that position, it's even more so. There are some other positions where you can project a little bit better, but quarterback, nobody has any idea. Go look at the stories like Russell Wilson. Go look at the Dak Prescotts of the world. I mean, it shows you over and over again.
The NFL did it again in the draft with Josh Allen.
Yeah, he did.
Hey, he could throw it 70 yards on his knee.
But can he play football? I'm not sure.
I don't know. Then why are you spending a top 10 pick on him?
There you go.
Upside,
but then
baby.
the NFL decided to think outside the box with Baker Mayfield.
Yeah.
You know, kind of an undersized quarterback from a system that's not really popular in the NFL for producing franchise quarterbacks. Baker Mayfield, former walk-on, so didn't even get a scholarship.
Twice.
So exactly. So the NFL, they're changing slowly but surely, but yeah, there's still some of those ignoramuses out there who drafted Josh Allen that high.
So the bottom line is, I mean, I think we can all see a scenario where it works with Sam Ehlinger.
I think it does. I think my only concern with Sam Ehlinger, and I wish there was some wood I could knock on around here. I don't know. It's as close as I can get to
his
it.
own himself.
It is, yes, it's Bam Bam Sam. Like, can you be a smarter runner? Because you're not going to make it through an entire college football season to make it to the college football playoff, and then to make it to the championship, which ends up being, 14, 15 games or something?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, you're not going to make it that far the way you play. You got to be a smarter runner. You got to run like Vince Young, run like Russell Wilson, be able to get skinny when you need to. Quit trying to run over DBs. It's not worth it. I need you for the long haul. Right. That's my number one concern with him. And number two, and I think he'll clean this up because he's just a freshman, just being careless with the football, but I think he'll clean that up too. No question.
And basically those two things, you basically have to tell Sam, we know you love Texas football, but you can't play like you love Texas football.
Don't play like you're not Bevo. Don't play like you're Bevo.
But because he's running his head through a wall, like he's playing with that passion, and then he's trying to force things in. He wants to carry his hometown team and the team he's grown up loving.
We love it.
I could see that idea of your emotion, and sometimes emotion can be channeled in the right directions, but it also can be when you're dealing with aggression in a position that you may not want him to be that aggressive, that it can at times be a fault of his. And then the other thing,
that's why Shane is so important. That's why Shane is invaluable.
Yes.
Right.
Because of Bam Bam Sam. You need an insurance policy behind Bam Bam Sam. Shane is that insurance
And
policy.
I'm not saying Tom Herman did anything deceitful, but I've got to imagine part of not declaring a starter is you got to keep Shane Buechele around. You got to make sure he's there.
You need him.
Because Sam Ehlinger's one play away from not being the guy anymore.
And there's no deceit there. It's like that's just what seems the best way to. His goal is to have the best football team,
and vice versa.
Get the best football
it cuts both ways too. Because if you decide Buechele's the guy, you're like, okay, yeah, he's been proven he's one play away from being really ineffective.
This is very true. Yeah. So you need both of these.
So that whole scenario of if you got two, you don't have one. No, you need two.
Yes, nowadays you do.
Yeah, Texas. Yeah, actually, nowadays you do. Look at Alabama. Look at Georgia in the national title game.
Look at the Super Bowl.
You need two, and someone's gonna get a Super Bowl. Somebody's gonna leave. Somebody's gonna get hurt. That position overall, not just the person that is the best at playing that position in your team, but that position overall now has become so important that you need depth. Like you need talented depth there at any elite level of football.
All right, well, that's going to do it for this week's show. Matt, thanks for everything, man.
Oh, you are more than welcome.
Rod B, appreciate the time and the knowledge.
Anytime, brother.
For Matt, for Rod, for Travis, the best damn videographer in the podcast game, for everybody at the Austin Radio Network, 104.9 The Horn, hornfm.com, worldwide on the Horn app, AM 1260, where you can hear Rod each and every weekday on the Rodcast from 1 to 3.
Shameless plug.
And thanks to Matt, you get us on iTunes, TuneIn, all the podcast apps out there, and get all of our archives on the Longhorn Blitz SoundCloud page.
Yep, just type in Longhorn Blitz.
For the Horn family, for the Horns 24/7 family, I'm Jeff Howe. Thank you so much for downloading and listening, and we will catch you again on the next episode.
You've been listening to Longhorn Blitz with horns247.com. Remember, for the latest Longhorn news 24/7, visit horns247.com.